Picture this, you're standing at the edge of a high dive, and below the water is calm and inviting. You can almost feel the thrill of the jump, the brief, weightless moment in the air. But just as you are about to leap, your feet remain frozen. Your mind starts floating with doubts, like maybe later, maybe tomorrow, maybe never. And that hesitation, that moment of doubt, feels just like the struggle we all face with change. You plan to start fresh, wake up early, hit the gym, launch that project, but when the moment comes, comfort pulls you back. And suddenly you're right where you started, wondering why you couldn't just take the leap. So in today's video, we'll uncover why change feels so difficult, what our brain is really doing behind the scenes, and most importantly, how you can start working with it rather than feeling like it's constantly holding you back. By the end of this video, you have simple, actionable steps to make change feel less overwhelming and more doable. If we have met before, I'm Son, always curious and passionate about learning. With a journey spanning over 20 years across the finance, creative, and luxury industries, I've embraced various roles and challenges. I'm here to share what I've learned and what I'm still learning about how to design a meaningful life with purpose, clarity, and momentum. Let's dive in. So if our brain is so good at creating habits, why does change feel so hard? Let's step back for a second. This isn't about willpower or self-control. It's about how our brain evolved. Change feels difficult because our brain is wired for safety, not growth. It sees unfamiliar territory as a potential threat, even when that change is something we truly want or need. It conserves energy and avoids risk by clinging to familiar patterns because in the past, sticking to the known meant staying alive. But today, this same mechanism can hold us back from growth. And that's why starting something new, whether it's a business, a new habit, or a big life change, can feel so uncomfortable because our brain interprets uncertainty as a threat and hits the brakes. But the good news, just because our brain reacts with hesitation doesn't mean the danger is real. Growth happens when we recognize this response for what it is and push forward anyway. Once you see hesitation for what it is, a built-in survival reflex, you can start rewiring your mind to embrace change instead of resisting it. Now that we understand why our brain resists change, let's talk about another major roadblock, what experts call the motivation myth. It's the mistaken belief that motivation is what drives action. Many of us wait to feel motivated before we take action, but what if that's the wrong approach? Why does motivation fail us when we need it most? We've all felt the surge of inspiration, making plans, telling ourselves, this time will be different. But then, reality kicks in, the excitement fades. That's because motivation is unreliable. And here's why. James Clear in Atomic Habits puts it perfectly. Motivation is unreliable because it's tied to emotion, and emotions change. Instead of relying on motivation, he says, the real key to consistency is building habits and designing an environment that makes those habits easy. Most people assume willpower is the solution, that if we just push harder, we'll break through. But that's where we get stuck. And I used to think willpower was the key. I remember forcing myself to wake up early every morning to work out, running on nothing but willpower. Well, it worked for a few days, then I started hitting snooze, skipping workouts, slipping back into the old habits. It was the same with eating healthy. I told myself I just used discipline to avoid junk food, and for a while, yeah, it worked. But after a long, exhausting day, my willpower ran dry, and before I knew it, I was reaching for whatever was quick and easy. And that's when I realized willpower alone wasn't enough to keep me going. Without a system in place, I kept falling back into the same patterns. If motivation is a short-lived spark, then willpower is like a battery. Useful but limited. It drains with every decision, an act of self-control. This concept, called ego depletion, was introduced by psychologist Dr. Roy Baumeister, and his research reveals that the more willpower we use, the harder it becomes to resist temptation or push through discomfort. The more choices we make, the faster our mental energy runs out. And that's why relying on willpower alone to make big changes often leads to burnout. Instead, real progress happens when we have routines in place that keeps us moving forward even when motivation is low. And there's one more thing to consider. Many people assume that once they feel ready, taking action will be easy. They wait for the right moment when everything aligns, but that moment rarely comes, leaving them stuck. And that's where a big misconception comes in. Believing that feeling ready means being ready. How often have you put off something important because you didn't feel ready? The truth? You won't feel ready until you've already started. Action isn't something that follows motivation, it's what creates it. I used to think motivation had to come first. I kept waiting to feel ready before going to the gym, but months passed and nothing changed. But one day, I stopped waiting and just went, ready or not. So now that we know motivation isn't the key, how do we turn change into something that lasts? The answer lies in training our brain to work with us, not against us. And the good news, it starts with small intentional steps that gradually build new habits and reshape how we think and act. For example, I wanted to start reading more, but every time I tried, I get distracted or felt too tired. So instead of forcing myself to read a whole chapter, I made a deal with myself. Just open the book and read one sentence. That's it, no pressure to go further. At first, it felt almost silly, but once I started, I think, well, I've already read a sentence, might as well read a little more. And before I knew it, reading became part of my routine, and I didn't have to push myself anymore. It just happened naturally. The same rule applies to writing. Maybe you want to start journaling or working on a creative project, but you keep waiting for inspiration to strike. Instead of trying to write a full page, just commit to one sentence. It could be a quote, a random doodle, or a small reflection, something funny, something frustrating, anything at all. And the hardest part of any habit, I know, it's taking the first step. But once you do, momentum kicks in. And that small action is often enough to break resistance. And before you know it, you're writing, scribbling, or sketching more than you expected. But what if we could make starting even easier? Or what if change could actually feel good instead of forced? Dopamine plays a big role in that. It's our brain's way of rewarding us and reinforcing behaviors that feel good. That's why when we experience something pleasurable, our brain releases this chemical, making us want to repeat the action. Neuroscientist Dr. Josh Brewer in The Craving Mind explains that habits stick when they are linked to positive reinforcement, making them easier to maintain. Take exercise, for example. If the thought of working out feels like a hassle, well, then find a way to make it enjoyable. The key is to associate movement with something positive so it stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like self-care. Wear workout clothes that makes you feel good, or treat yourself to a smoothie afterward. Or maybe you want to start writing but keep putting it off. Make it easier by creating a setup you actually enjoy. Like, for example, use a pen that feels good to write with. Find a cozy spot where you feel relaxed and give yourself a guilt-free break once you put a few words down. When the process feels rewarding, it becomes so much easier to stay consistent in the long run. And sometimes the smallest pleasures are enough to reduce resistance and get you started. Over time, the action itself becomes enjoyable and you no longer need external rewards. What used to feel like a struggle starts to feel natural, something you actually want to do. That's when real lasting change happens. Now that we know how to make habits stick, there's still one major obstacle: our mindset. One of the biggest mental roadblocks to change is the what if trap. It's the same mechanism that fuels our fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort. When you're about to try something new, your mind floods with doubts. What if I embarrass myself? What will people think? What if it doesn't work? And the secret here is to reframe fear, doubt, and negative thinking. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask yourself, what if I never try? Or what if people criticize my work? You ask instead, what if my work inspires someone? The reason this shift is so effective isn't just positive thinking. It's backed by science. Psychologist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett explains that our brain processes fear and excitement in the same way. The difference is the label we assign to the feeling. When we are consciously reframe fear as excitement, we shift our brain from threat mode to opportunity mode. I remember when I had an opportunity to speak in front of a large audience, my first thought was, what if I mess up? But instead of spiraling into anxiety, I told myself, I'm not nervous, I'm excited for the great opportunity. That small shift changed everything, and instead of fear, I felt empowered. Imagine looking back years from now, regretting not taking action just because fear held you back. Wouldn't it be worse to regret never trying than to fail and learn? So next time fear creeps in, flip the question because the words you use shape your mindset. Now that you've tackled the mental barriers, let's talk about a tool that can help you bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Visualization. It's a technique that top performers, athletes, and entrepreneurs swear by. Your brain filters what you focus on. If you constantly focus on fear and failure, your mind will look for evidence to confirm those beliefs. But if you focus on success and opportunities, your brain starts seeking ways to make them happen. Neuroscientific studies show that when you imagine yourself achieving a goal, your brain activates in a way that mirrors real life experiences, making it easier to take action when the time comes. So don't just think about your goals, see them, remind yourself of them daily, and watch how your brain starts working to turn them into reality. For example, you want to save money? Then put a picture of your dream vacation on your fridge so you're reminded of your goal every day. Or you are trying to get healthier? Then keep your workout gear inside or place a motivation note on your mirror. Or you're working towards a big career goal? Well, then write it down and put it somewhere visible, your desk, your phone background, or even on a sticky note by your computer. And you know what? I did myself when I started my YouTube journey. I wanted to make my goal feel real, so I created a mock-up of the YouTube silver play button with my name on it using Photoshop and had it printed. Let me show you. Here it is. That's the one. Holding it in my hands made the milestone feel tangible, even though I had only just begun with a few videos. It's a constant reminder that every small step adds up to something bigger. And one day, I look back at this video and I say, I'm so glad I took that first step. I started with one video, then another, stayed consistent, rewarded myself, reframed my fears and doubts, and visualized this journey every step of the way. And now, it's your turn. What's one goal you can make real today? Something you can see, hold, or remind yourself of every day? Share it in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, check out the next one, where I dive into the hidden power of routines and how they quietly build the foundation for lasting success. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you there.